No, I have to say that show taught me, like I'd been writing before it a little bit, here and there, but Roseanne, it sounds crazy because it was like such a giant writer's room and you were there and it was hard to get ownership. Like even the episode I wrote, everything was gang written and you just get your name on it. But it did teach me about like writing and storytelling more than anything I'd ever worked on, because it was like, oh yeah, you can really be honest here. You can go a page without a joke if you're getting to something funny, and you can go and like, I reference that show on Modern Family all the time, because when Modern Family first came out, there were a lot of people who were saying, oh, it's more like Arrested Development because of the documentary thing of this. And I was like, nope, Roseanne, it's hard as Roseanne. It's a family that loves each other that happens to be funny.
Yeah.
And which was always what Roseanne was. Now, Roseanne was a little more working class because of that character, but those stories, like I was a fan of Roseanne prior to working on it. It was like, holy shit, this happens from my life. Like, whether it's masturbation. I know, Jenny, we talked about this all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
masturbating, yeah.
Masturbating.
No. Like with Roseanne, though, like personally, just growing up watching it, because my sister, Amy, is 2 years older than me. And Amy was very much a Becky, and I was very much like a Darlene. And my whole family, we were just the worst smart asses to each other. Like it was just open season on anyone at our house at all times. So like Roseanne was such oh wow, I could really connect to that, the bonds between the siblings and the parents and
and we got to do everything. I mean, we touched on,
everything.
Addiction and alcoholism and domestic violence and, White Men Can't Kiss. That episode was so pivotal for me growing up, where DJ doesn't want to kiss the girl.
Yeah.
And ultimately to pull that full circle and have DJ end up marrying her as an adult. Like, and those are the storylines I always want to dive into more. Those are the things I'm always fighting for us to tackle, because those social issues, that growing up on a show like this, that's my wheelhouse as a writer, producer. Like, that's what I want real topics that people relate to and deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the brilliance of both like the Connors and Roseanne, I always felt was like a show like that. What it can do is it can we have big issues we're dealing with. And so you turn on the television and people are marching, or somebody's like going on strike or this, and it's sort of like ambiguous. But when you make it, okay, how does this intersect with this family and these characters we care about in a very personal way? And then suddenly it's like, you're doing a story about, there's an issue, but it's not about an issue. I mean, the issue is the background, and it's just like, it's a complication for a family. How do they get through it? And other people can relate to it because we're all going through it, I think.
And there was that open dialogue with the family that was so great, like that a lot of people do not have. Families like, no, we don't talk about that. We don't say these things. We're on Roseanne, I mean, and the Connors as well. It's like, there's no topic you can't discuss. Everything.
30 years later, that's the beauty of our show, and the power is we kind of have this inside view for fans, because they know us, they can trust us, they know where we come from, so we can say things that I think you can't do in other places. Because if it was a new show and you tried to say some of these things, people would be like, whoa, you guys went too far. In our case, you have the history, and it allows us to tackle things, I think, on a much deeper level that people will give you. You have that built-in cachet and credit with people. They know where your heart is.
Right.
That's a really good point, because it's how, like, the best episodes of Roseanne, they and the Connors, if we all can descend into preachiness, like it happens. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely fallen into it. We fell into it on all shows.
Yeah.
But the best ones, like what you're saying, is like, you're right. It's coming out. It doesn't. You get a buy because we know these characters. We know you can relate it to a history that you've seen these characters. So of course, that's how DJ is going to react in this particular moment, or Darlene is going to have this take on it. It's not invented,
Right.
And each kid, what I also love, like as I'm rewatching it, how each kid's personality was so specific. Like the kids are not, like they're very, very specific things. So when a topic that would be somewhat heavy, each kid's response to it would be so, like, well, Dad said I'm not supposed to talk about it, and then run upstairs to go, well, why would that, because you can innocently ask or innocently say something where an adult couldn't like if it was a heavy topic, like, what do you mean? You know, when Roseanne was thinking there might be something wrong with the baby and they're talking about abortion, you know, and that's something that as she's trying to explain it to DJ, and it's like, okay, well, it's your choice, you know, whatever. Like the innocence of a kid's, you know, response was really like, I don't think I caught it at the time, but rewatching it, I'm like, it's really remarkable because that's the best way to address something instead of just yelling, you know, a bunch of adults screaming shit at each other. It's like, this is your choice. Okay, well, I support you, whatever you want, you know, like you don't see that, you know, as much on shows today. I don't know. I think it's
hard now too, though, because we ask people on shows, we start asking for jokes per page, and we get into the business of it, of like, you know, how many, like you mentioned before, going a whole page without a joke.
Yeah.
And that wasn't unheard of for us. And we still a lot of times will go space without hitting a joke. You know, you're building to something.
Yeah.
And sometimes the big joke comes almost at the end of a scene.
Yeah.
And when those hit, they're often the most cathartic, beautiful laughs you can have. I gotta just also say, because like one of the things Roseanne did for a lot of, I think, writer here was there was the moment before Roseanne where you always kind of looked down if you had to work with kids. There was a little bit like every kid was like super cute. Not that you're not adorable, but like there was the TV kid who'd come in with a wisecrack or precociousness in this, and the kids all of you from this early age, it's going off of what Jenny was saying. We're just so like there was a glimmer of who you got all were and how it developed, and then even like the addition of like when Johnny Galecki came in to that show, and I was watching him interact with the family and Darlene. It's like I'd never seen kid actors do what you all did, and it's sort of you raise the bar. I mean, it's funny because now you can't really do kids like those ages.
Yeah.
And go if you go to the cutesy stuff, you're a TGIF show or you're a Nickelodeon, you know, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, the expectation definitely was raised because nothing was off limits. And like Jenny said, we all had such strong opinions, but also they never gave us a pass. If there was a subject in the house, everybody had to have an opinion, that's real life. I've never been in a house with people where everybody didn't have some opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
or was it hidden from you or something? It was, you know, the way that everything and the acting on Roseanne, I mean, yourself and John Goodman, Lori, I mean, like just everyone is so good on the show. It's just like even the, you know, Crystal, you know, I mean, just like every person's like just thing, their voice, whatever is just so good. And it's so strong. And I love that each character has such a strong role that like people will go, oh, you're acting like a Becky or a Darlene or you know, like it's that strong instead of, and you're right, Danny, you don't see that so much. Like
you don't, and you really want to you know, strive for that. I think in as creators,